Today we are going to be talking about the wicked powers. We are once again down here by the Cassandra Clare shelf because it's Cassandra Clare time, of course. If you're not aware, just about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we finally got the cover and the release date for the Wicked Powers, the first book in the Wicked Powers, The Last King of Faerie. Providing a little bit more context, I suppose some people might not know. This series is going to be the final Shadowhunter trilogy. Cassandra Clare has publicly said a few times now that she is finishing up the Shadowhunter series with a final trilogy. Whatever happens in the end of the series, it basically brings about the end of Shadowhunters or Shadowhunter universe. There's no need for a Shadowhunter universe beyond the end of the final book. The Last King of Faerie, the first Wicked Powers book, really is the beginning of the ending of the Shadowhunter Chronicles, which spans over 20 books at the moment. So it is actually a really big deal. What I've done today is I have trawled the internet. I logged back into Tumblr for the first time in like 10 years. And I went on to find basically all of the relevant information I could about this series so that I could talk about and tell you about everything we know so far about the Wicked Powers. This is going to include Q&As with Cassandra Clare. I'm going to look at the synopsis of the book. I'm going to also give you my thoughts on maybe plot points that I think will be touched on or things that I want answers on based on the last 10, 12, 13 years of reading Cassandra Clare books. This is a big one. I think this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. There will be discussion of major plot points, potentially from the whole series in this video, because I'm speculating on the Wicked Powers. So if this is something you're really passionate about and you don't want to be spoiled about it, maybe stop right now, because, you know, spoilers will happen and I will be referencing exact plot points from previous books. There you go. If you don't care about spoilers, or if you're up to date like me, hi, hello, I hope you enjoy this. Or you're just here for vibes, not even for the Shadowhunter series, confused as to why you clicked here, but hi, how are you? Also enjoy. So now that that's cleared away, let's talk about this. First, we have our release date. I got this from the TMI source social media channels. I believe they also have a website, kind of like a blog all about the Cassandra Clare universe. They keep really good up-to-date notes about everything that comes out to do with Cassandra Clare. The release date that they said is November 3rd, 2026. Originally, Cassandra Clare did say like spring 2026, but you can't rush the final Shadowhunter series. But let's start with the titles. So the first book will be The Last King of Faerie, the next one will be The Last Prince of Hell, and the final book in the Shadowhunter universe will be The Last Shadowhunter, which I think is incredibly apt. Even the name of the series, The Wicked Powers, it actually comes from a Shadowhunter rhyme or song, and I'm pulling this straight from City of Heavenly Fire. It's the Shadowhunter's children's rhyme. I think it's Jace maybe, goes through what each color represents in the Shadowhunter universe. So for example, we have black for hunting through the night, for death and mourning the color's white. So there's a big long rhyme, and then right at the end we have silver for the demon towers and bronze to summon wicked powers. I thought that was interesting. Do I know what that could possibly mean? Not really. Will bronze play a role in the book? Probably not. But wicked powers, I'm assuming we will get the biggest baddie. Maybe not baddie. Maybe. We will meet the biggest enemy we've ever met. Think the final boss of the Shadowhunter series. So maybe that's what it entails, summoning wicked powers. Does maybe Lucifer get summoned using bronze? I don't know. Maybe that's even a hint to what goes on there. Definitely summoning a very big evil is the idea. That's where the title comes from, potentially. Obviously, I could be wrong. I could be kind of taking this out of nowhere, but Cassandra Clare is very particular in choosing her titles, her series. Most of the series titles do have some kind of literature tie or some kind of reference. For example, The Last Hours, The Chain of Gold, Iron and Thorns are taken from a quote from Great Expectations, I believe. Just something to note. I will give you the official synopsis of this first book. It's Drusilla Blackthorn's 4th year at Shadowhunter Academy when a chance encounter at a nightclub turns into a kidnapping. Drew finds herself held prisoner by Prince Ash Morgenstern in the Land of Faerie, a place that proves just as dangerous as it is beautiful. Despite herself, Drew is drawn to Ash and the darkness that seems to surround him, but one false move could cost her her life. Meanwhile, a shocking disappearance rocks the foundations of the Shadowhunter world. Kit Haringale and Ty Blackthorne must set aside the bitterness that lingers between them and join forces on a perilous quest to save everything they cherish. The kidnapping by Ash Morgenstern is very interesting because we know Drew and Ash obviously have interacted, and I definitely think there's a romance there, so that's very interesting the way she's going with that kidnapping. How did that happen? Also, why is Drew in a nightclub? Isn't she like 15? She should be only 16 or 17. We're not fully certain. Cassandra Clare has mentioned once or twice, I think, that the book is set about 3 years after the events of the Dark Artifices. That kind of makes Kit and Ty about 17, 18, and Drew 16, 17. Around that. I'm sure it'll be cleared up for us pretty much off the bat, or mentioned at the very least in the book. The kids are growing up. Also, a shocking disappearance being a focal point of the plot, especially with Kit and Ty, and I don't know if I read this somewhere. I actually can't even find a source to back myself up, which is always a bit dodgy. So take this with the biggest grain of salt. But I could have sworn it was Diego that is gone missing and is already missing. You know, like I feel like we knew that he was missing, but I cannot find anyone to back me up on that. So I might have dreamed it, but also isn't the Inquisitor role super cursed anyway? Like everyone dies or goes evil or just has an awful run of it. I wouldn't be super shocked if Diego even dies in the series, because I wouldn't say yes to being an Inquisitor, I'll tell you that much. I also want to note that Cassandra Clare is working with different publishers on this series. They seem to be very strict on what people are allowed to know. Cassandra Clare has said many times, especially on her Tumblr, because I was reading that recently, that she can't say anything. Like if you want a snippet, she needs to quadruple check it with everyone at the publishing house. And so it seems like this series is being kept under lock and key very seriously. And it makes sense. Now, let's go over to Cassandra Clare's Ask box on Tumblr. I picked the questions that I thought were most relevant for the video. Obviously, she does answer other questions. So if you're super interested in seeing all of the questions she has answered, head on over to her Tumblr. And I think you do have to log in to look at stuff on Tumblr nowadays. These are the bits that I pulled out and thought were quite interesting as I was going through her Tumblr. Here's the first question I saw. It says, I wanted to know if in The Last King of Faerie we learn why Nini lied and how she managed to do so about not knowing Ash and him being kept away from the court, considering we learned in Better in Black, the set of short stories, that Nini raised Ash and he would run freely through the court and courtiers would come visit him as a baby. And Cassandra Clare said, yes, we find out the Queen put members of the seated court under a gesh that prevented them from saying certain things about Ash to outsiders / non-Seelie court members. We find this out from a different fairy under the gesh who tells it to Kit, and it's mentioned in relation to Nini as well. We haven't explored the concept of a gesh much before, but it's an old part of fairy folklore and would supersede the not lying, especially since most of what Nini says in the Dark Artifices, she doesn't know exactly how old Ash is now and wouldn't recognize him, is true. So I want to just address the word gesh. So this is a word taken from kind of like the Gaelic languages, specifically Scots Gaelic and Gaeilge, which is Irish language I speak. It's kind of like a spell or a vow really in this kind of context. We have the word gesh, G-E-I-S, which is like a taboo or like something that's prohibited. I will stick up a little dictionary excerpt from an Irish English dictionary to show you that. The word G-E-A-S is the genitive plural version of the word. All of that to say, basically, that means that all of the fairies are under a little spell so that they cannot reveal anything about Ash to the outside world, which makes sense. It's also fairly convenient that everything is through fairy magic, because we really found out a lot about Nini in that short story and how much she really was involved in the raising of Ash. We also know that aging is really weird in fairy, so it's also very fair that she does not have a clue what age Ash is. I assume he is probably the same age as Drew, maybe a year or two older. Next, hi Cassie, can we expect by any chance an Ash's POV at some point in the Wicked Powers? Yes, you'll see his POV in the Last King of Faerie. So that was our confirmation on the POVs. We'll get Ash, Kit, Ty, and Drew's POVs all in this book. I am particularly excited to see Ty's POV because if you noticed, we actually haven't seen his POV before. Like, we very much know a lot of stuff that goes on in his head, but we've never actually been in there. I'm very excited to see that. Ooh, this one. Hi Cassie, could you share with us a quote or a fun fact about Drew and Ash? Been obsessed with them for so long. And Cassandra Clare said, I will share a thing to think about. Ash has the power to make people love him and want to please him. So how does that go when he can't turn it off, even if he wants to? And she puts an evil little smiley face there. That's going to be a tricky situation to navigate, especially if Drew and Ash are love interests in this book. So with the Ash situation and him not being able to turn off his charm, that is incredibly intriguing. Here's an example of the strictness of the publisher. Someone said, would you be able to give us any Kit snippet, pretty please, with sugar on top? And Cassandra Clare said, my publisher is being very stern about snippets. Sharing anything beyond Kit put on his jacket would require me to ask permission, capital letters. He does put on his jacket a lot though. You see, there's a tight wrap on all of this, all of the snippets. But don't worry, I will be reading you some of the relevant snippets I found after this. I liked this response and this kind of discussion is, are we going to see Ty learn about autism? So, you won't see him learn it so much as he already knows about it. In the first scene with him, he discusses what it means for him in terms of his work at the Scholomance, and we later see him thinking about and discussing what it's like in terms of being a neurodivergent Shadowhunter. Kit has also read a ton about it, as has Ty's whole family. He does explain why he does things a certain way sometimes, but never to anyone who has no context for it. It's more a, this is me and how I do things. He never feels bad about it and never has to excuse any part of himself. There are ways in which it makes him a better Shadowhunter, and that's explored a bit too. I quite like this exploration of Ty's autism, and I do hope that Cassandra Clare doesn't fall into that infantilization of autistic characters that tends to happen sometimes, obviously not all the time. I never felt that way about Ty so far, and Cassandra Clare has said she has sensitivity readers, she has people to check this stuff with, I think is great and fantastic, and we've never actually gotten a Ty POV before. And so I think people tend to view Ty in this super idealistic way because we've only ever explored his character through Kit's eyes or Julian's eyes. We've never actually seen life through Ty's actual eyes, and I do believe in Cassandra Clare and her abilities, so we'll see how that goes. We have, hi Cassie, will Kit try to better understand his powers? He will try, find out what they are, and if they're wicked, which is very funny. Something I just wanted to bring our attention to, I want to remind us about the gun, James Herondale's gun. We found out in, was it a short story, or I think was it The Secrets of Blackthorn Hall, that Kit can fire James Herondale's gun. Previously, when Shadowhunters have tried to develop guns and put runes on them so you could like shoot demons instead of, you know, stab, it just hasn't worked because the gunpowder and the runes don't mix well together. Whereas then when James Herondale used it, because of his like water demonic blood, it actually fired and he was able to use a gun. He does drop it in Hell, I think, or at the very end of Chain of Thorns. It ended up back in Surinworth. We found out in one of the Secrets of Blackthorn Hall entries is that Kit could fire it. Raises so many questions because he doesn't have demonic blood. Well, like technically I suppose he kind of does because he has fairy blood in him. That's why he has like some kind of extra powers. We don't actually know the full extent of his fairy magic or what he has access to. But there was a prophecy about his ancestor, was it Oraline? Something like that, saying that person who wields the full fairy magic that they are capable of will have insane power. You know, Kit is just a walking nuclear reactor or something. I'm excited to see that and finally know more definitively what Kit's powers are outside of just being a Herondale. Those were the questions and answers that I thought were very interesting from Cassandra Clare's Tumblr. Another piece of information that I thought was interesting is that I believe in an Instagram live, so I might not be able to find the clip. If I do, I will pop it in, but if not, you'll just have to believe me. Cassandra Clare said that the Mortal Instruments gang will not be around for the first book of the Wicked Wicked Powers, or potentially all of it. I could be wrong on that, but definitely the first one, as they are off dealing with something else. What I think is going on in there, remember we still have the third book from the Eldest Curses to come out. What I reckon, and why I reckon that hasn't come out yet, is because it happens at the same time as The Last King of Faerie, and that would explain why all of them are out of here and Magnus is off doing something and can't just help the younger cohort of Shadowhunters. I think that makes a lot of sense. But anyway, the Mortal Instruments gang are not going to be in the Wicked Powers, or they'll be mentioned but they will not show up because they're all dealing with something else, which raises questions. Like what? Let's look at the snippets that I was able to hunt out from the internet. First one also comes from Cassandra Clare's Tumblr. This was posted on the 27th of August 2025. Kit, the voice sounded as if it was coming from very far away. Not Ty's voice either. Kit felt as if ice had been injected into his veins, but he forced himself to roll over onto his back. Ty was there, a silver knife in his hand. He ducked his head and started cutting away the rope around Kit's waist. Hovering just behind him was Livy, half translucent, her hair floating around her as if she were underwater, just as Kit had been. Kit, you have to get up, she was saying. Kit had seen a lot of ghosts in his life, but never one as clearly panicked as Livy was now. They're here, they followed you. The words echoed inside Kit's head, all sound and no sense. Follow, follow, follow. He caught at Ty's wrist just as the rope fell away. Also, this is my first time reading the snippet because I wanted my actual reaction and thoughts to be authentic, but oh my goodness. So clearly we have Kit also being somewhat kidnapped and thrown in a lake or something, because underwater, said something about underwater, hovering just behind, just as Kit had been. So why does Kit end up in water? What happened? I suppose I never actually mentioned Ghost Livy this whole time. There is like a massive plot point, like what's going to happen? Is she going to get peace? You know, you're only a ghost if you're not at peace. And obviously I know it was because of Ty doing his thing. There has to be some kind of weird repercussion for that. Did he bring Livy back using bronze? Is everything Ty's fault? Is that what I'm learning now? Of course we'll see loads of Livy in the book because she cannot actually go very far from Ty. It's kind of inconvenient for poor Livy. The next snippet was from October 17th, 2025, and this was in Cassandra Clare's newsletter. You know I'm subscribed to her newsletter. So this is a snippet. He still resembled Jace. The same golden hair tousled into curls and the same sarcastically curled mouth. But he wore a golden mask now that covered his eyes and nose, a half mask, carved to look like the proud and deadly face of a hawk. Drew heard Clary make a noise, a sort of strangled gasp. Maybe because this man, this stranger, looked so much like Jace. Maybe because a heavy crossbow of clear fairy workmanship was braced against his shoulder, its bolt trained squarely on Drew's chest. It was probably the crossbow. So that was Janice. Thule Jace. Maybe this is the scene of Drew getting kidnapped because Crossbolt are Janice and Ash. I think so. I think they are like hiding out together or something. So it would make sense. And we definitely know that Janice is obsessed with Clary and getting Clary back, I suppose. That's what I think this is. I think this is Drew getting kidnapped in front of Clary's face, maybe. Next we have from January 15th, 2026, also from an email, because Cassandra Clare has now stepped up her promo for the Wicked Powers, which is so exciting and great for me. He's a mundane. Our love is doomed anyway, said Drew. I never said anything about love, Thice pointed out, just as Drew noticed Jace, Clary, Magnus, Alec and Izzy weaving through the crowd towards them. Eyes followed them as they made their way across the room. Downworlders looking curious, though not worried as they might have been before Alec had become consul, when things between Shadowhunters and Downworlders had been much more tense, and Mundanes seeming to sense something unusual was happening, even if they couldn't see it. They reached Thice and Drew. Is that the scene that leads into the one I just read? I think so. Oh, I just kicked you. So sorry guys. I think that is the nightclub. That sounds like a nightclub because Downworlders, Mundanes, everyone, and the Mortal Instruments gang weaving through the crowd. I think that's first. And then Janice, however you're supposed to pronounce it, is literally threatening Drew with a crossbow. It makes sense that the snippets Cassandra Clare can share are ones that are earlier on in the book, because it gets very difficult to share snippets the further on in the book goes. Even talking talking about like a sequel to a book is actually kind of hard to review because I'm so scared of spoilers. Obviously not in this case because we're just sharing here. So I'm just popping onto TMI source because I believe they got 1 or 2 exclusive snippets. So we'll see. Okay, so here's an excerpt that TMI source and Shadowhunters.it got exclusively. Jem twisted around in his chair. Kit, don't. But Kit was already running through the big dining room with its massive table, the one they never used, cutting through the music room and into the foyer. The door was rattling on its hinges as whoever it was outside banged away at it, and suddenly Kit wasn't so much worried as angry. Only Shadowhunters could get past the wards, and even then, only those with benign intentions. And they were still frightening Kit's family. He unbolted, unbarred, and undid the locks and threw the door open. Rain gusted in, blinding him for a moment. It really was unusually bad. He wiped at his eyes, blinked, and froze. Standing on the front steps of Cirenworth, soaking wet, was Ty. That seems to be like our A and B plots going. So A, we have in the club with Drew, everything happening, and then Ty obviously gone to get Kit, which means disaster because those two don't talk anymore. And finally we have a pretty long excerpt that was given to People. Is that people.com, like the magazine? I'm not sure, it just says People. You know what the hell, we're here for the long haul, so buckle up. We're gonna read this whole excerpt, and again, I've not read this before, so this is exciting. Dice and Drew put their red cups down and followed the others out onto the dance floor. They danced in a group, laughing and spinning, and Drew's nervousness eased. If they thought of her as a little kid, they weren't showing it. Dice danced a little distance away. She always lost herself in the music, eyes closed, body swaying. Her gold hoops glittered against her brown skin. Drew tried closing her own eyes for a second, twirling across the sticky floor, and immediately banged into Magnus. Sorry, she laughed. No worries, said Magnus, the glitter around his eyes sparkling under the strobe lights. Everything good with you? Fine, but I wanted to ask you something. Drew tugged at a blue lock of her hair, a bad habit. Has anyone heard anything new about Jamie? Magnus looked regretful. Still no news. Before he left, I gave him a ring he could use to summon me, but he hasn't. I promise I'll send you a fire message the minute anyone hears anything. I'm sure he's still alive in Faerie, Drew said. Jamie's smart, but the patterns of the dance spun her away from Magnus. She shivered as a draft of cold air passed her. Someone must have opened the front door. Or maybe it was just her worry about Jamie. He's been gone so long with no word. She had such a crush on him when she was younger. She told Dice all about it when she first came to the academy. She still had the hunting dagger he'd given her, gold, inscribed with a pattern of roses. She didn't know what she felt for him now. It didn't matter. What mattered was whether he was all right. Or maybe Jamie Rosales, not Diego, is the one that's missing. That makes sense, actually. That still technically counts as a bad thing happening to the poor Inquisitor because that's his baby brother, I'm pretty sure. Let me roll back what I said earlier. Just know that I'm right, kinda. When she returned to the group, Clary had gone to look for Maya to talk about some wedding related thing. Maya and her longtime boyfriend Bat had tied the knot over the summer, and Isabel was dancing with Jace. Every once in a while she'd step on his foot and say, no, not like that. And it made Drew smile a bit. Siblings were siblings everywhere, she thought, and she missed hers. It would be ages before they were all together again for the holidays. Drew, whispered a voice in her ear. A familiar voice. Dice? Izzy? She turned and saw no one. None of her friends were close enough for her to hear them whisper. She turned to look behind her. No one there either. Drew, said the voice again. And this time Drew started. Don't freak out. You can't see me, but I'm here. Drew inhaled a shaky breath. She'd hoped for this day, but she hadn't thought it would leave her so shaken, so unsettled. Livy, she murmured. Thought you couldn't go far away from Ty. I've been trying to train myself. Livy's voice echoed inside Drew's head, like the voice of a silent brother. Drew went back to dancing. She couldn't just stand still in the middle of the dance floor as if she was concussed. Going a little further away each time, mostly to the borders of Idris, but tonight, you wanted to hear Simon's band play. Oh, that's why Drew is in a nightclub. Okay. Livy didn't laugh. Did ghosts laugh? Drew wanted badly to see her sister's face, not just hear her voice. Come with me, Livy whispered. We haven't got much time. And that's the end of the snippets. I feel like they are all from the first like 3 chapters or something. That's everything I kind of have to read for you and grab for you. The last few bits I just kind of want to touch on are more my thoughts or things that I think will be addressed. Maybe not the first book, but definitely the Wicked Powers series, because we're talking about the Wicked Powers, not just the first book here today. One of the first things I have a question about is Thule Simon. So, in the Dark Artifices, we obviously go to Thule, the other dimension. Livy is alive there, and everything's all messed up. It was the version of the future or whatever timeline if Sebastian won. We know what happened to all of our main gang except Simon. We actually don't know what happened to Thule Simon. Is he alive? Questions. Thule, Emma, in one of the short stories I think it was, got pulled into the dimension. And so is Janus trying to summon Thule Simon? Is that what's going on? And is that how like Emma ended up there and causing havoc? Will we get a Janus fight? Jace v Jace, if you will. And then the other main thing is I'm very curious where the whole Ty and Livy necromancy plot is gonna go. How are we getting resolution for that? Because that was insanity. Is she going to get to be at peace? Is Ty going to actually get proper repercussions for his actions? If you think about it, he got off quite lightly. Obviously, again, his sister literally died. His twin died. He didn't get off lightly in that front, but how he responded to it by raising her from the dead and using that kind of forbidden magic is wild. And the worst thing that happened is that she came back as a ghost and can't leave his side very far, as we saw in the snippet. She can only go a certain distance from him. Like, will there be more harsh or like a stronger repercussion or something? Those are all of my thoughts, kind of my open questions, bullet points on the wicked powers. And I think that kind of brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for letting me speculate on this series. I am super excited, and you bet there'll be some kind of video reading the wicked powers. I might even like take 2 days off work, sit on the couch for the 2 days reading the book, filming as well and updating you guys. That's kind of my current plan. We'll see how that goes. Just know I'm super excited for this series and I cannot wait for it to come out. Stay tuned for more Cassandra Clare content coming your way at some stage. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, here's another one YouTube recommends, and I will see you next time.